Welcome to Theorycraft, a live podcast where game developers and their players engage in conversation. We are back again. It's mid-February already. I have no idea how that happened. This shit is going way too fast. And there's our demonetization flag in the first 15 seconds. So, Chris, what have you been up to lately, man? How are things at Notorious?
Good. I mean, between the last time we did the podcast and now, we showed off like some first screens of the game. So, and that went really well. We were trying to collect some signups for playtests so that we have a list of playtesters for the game, and we got like a good number of those, and we met our expectations for that. So that was good. And yeah, we got like some really good applicants too as well. We're not really like super hardcore hiring right now, but it was cool to get some. We got some like good reach outs, so that's cool. And yeah, all the response was really great. I just think, people would like to see gameplay footage, and we're going to show that eventually. Just not quite ready yet. But yeah,
they want some meat. Do you just keep like rolling applications going for Noto, or like is it strategic and you list things every time you kind of go out and do a new blast? Like I guess every exposure is kind of an opportunity for new people, new players, new investors, new everything.
Yeah. I mean, we have like a few open roles, and certainly the last time, not this time, but the time before, when we announced the game, we did have a lot of, we strategically posted certain applicants, and we got like great applicants at that time and hired a few people as well. So we're at like peak of what we wanted for this phase. And so, after we move into the next phase of the company, then we'll have a lot more open roles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't help but notice all of the Notorious hoodies all the OTK boys are wearing, and I'm just kind of wondering when that merch link is going to be made available to Theorycraft, or like what your plans are for it, because I'm feeling a little left out in the cold, personally. T-shirt looking a little sad. There's been the new wave.
Yeah, it was funny. We have to like order a next batch of that swag because we have like all those credits from the company that we ordered it from. So we did give a bunch to some of the guys, and it was funny because when Asman and all those guys were leaving, they're like, "Could we get a hoodie?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." And we gave them some. But it's interesting because OTK, I'm talking with them perhaps to maybe they want to like. Because they make their own merch, like they make their own like. I mean, I don't know like the extent of it. Like, I doubt they are like have their own sheep that they're making their cotton from or anything like that. But they have. but I guess they do make their own merch, and so they're asking me if they would like to collab and make some merch at some point. I think it's probably like too soon for something like that. We need to like get the game out first, but I don't know. We'll see. It was interesting. I had a lot of people email us after they saw, I think, Asman and some of the guys in the hoodie is like, how can I get that hoodie? And I'm like, in the future, maybe in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to be patient. Yeah. Have you played any games lately, or you've been too busy with everything to get into it? There was just another Dark and Darker playtest.
Yeah. Like I said, I played for like a little bit, just like an hour or so. I do want to play the Hogwarts game, and but no, I just mostly just playing our game.
Good stuff.
Because we're all just like iterating on this new deliverable in March. So, gosh, I think that's it. Yeah, I haven't really been playing very much. Yeah. How about you?
I wish. No, I've been on the B side of that WLB, the work-life balance. Just kind of, I don't know, taking that New Year's energy and trying to work on my comedy stuff. Work itself has been really busy. I've had like guests around. I just feel very, very overcommitted, and work is getting more intense, which is not crunch, but is like clay intense. Every day, there's just kind of a lot to do. I feel like we have some marching orders. This is going to be a big year for our title, so I've just been going hard. But it's really fun.
Is it supposed to release this year, or?
Nothing like that has been announced, but it just feels like we're just kind of busting. Like I feel like we know what we're doing. We're just making a whole lot more of it. It feels like production to a degree. And it's interesting, like the more I continue to work there, it's like I notice the parts of the sort of like Blizzard polish ideology that I've like brought to Clay in terms of like wanting to make specific things that like you'll hear them a million times and they'll still feel good. it's kind of tough to square with like how iterative the process is on a team this size, especially when we're discovering stuff. Like anecdotally, and I can say all of this without really disclosing anything, but like we have a weapon that we're working on, for example, has a lot of new mechanics. It has like a lot of layers to its sound design in ways I want to make it feel good. And like my colleague noticed that I was starting to talk about working on this in a way that was like, I felt bad for still working on it. Like I was saying, oh, still working on the blank. I can't believe I've been working on it for this long, kind of. And he was like, just recall that like the effects artist, the game designer, and the animator like have all been working on this weapon even longer than you have. And like, it's completely fine for you to be working in the pocket with them. And like, we're just going to be tuning it forever. And, I don't know, something about like my past work history makes me feel very like, oh God, if I take longer than X or something stays open for longer than a week, I feel bad about it. But it's just a different style of game design for me, game development, I guess. Because like I was very, very used to like the hero's ready-ish, here's the stuff you need to do. And there are very few questions left to answer. And now that I'm much earlier in the process, it's like just a lot of retracing. Squaring that with polishing it up is like, it's just a lot. But I'm having a really good time. I can't wait for people to see more. Just like you, I am sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see your guys' next kind of announcement or whatever. That's
it's
cool.
Going to be good.
Yeah. Is this what the entire studio is like focused on, or
no? Not at all. Yeah. So I don't know if exactly how much is public, but one interesting thing about Clay to me that feels different from a lot of other companies I've seen is that we don't have like 80% of the studio working on the kind of the golden calf and then like the golden goose. I messed that up. And then we have the other 20% working on like the innovation side or whatever. Like we're pretty evenly divided amongst a lot of projects with smaller teams, which is really fun. Because you can kind of get that small team feel of like depending on a couple of core people, like inside of a company that has like, larger support and infrastructure and community and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like most game companies, you know what I mean? Like everybody is sort of shoveling for the next release and like only a few senior people are off in space doing the kind of cool new stuff. So yeah, that's how that breakdown looks.
Got it.
Yeah. It's working out okay. I mean, we're modeled pretty closely on Valve. So that's actually why when somebody linked that like
I did, yeah. Valve, did you watch it?
I did watch it. And a lot of
What did you think about it?
I mean, a lot of it rang pretty true from my experience.
Which parts?
Yeah, let's see here. Don't want to get fired.
We don't have to get too crazy, but
we don't have to get too deep. I think it's mostly just that like there was a sentiment from a lot of the anonymous interviews they took that felt like a lot of things were opaque. And I experienced that too. You don't really know where the opaque parts are. And when I run into them, it always surprises me because something about it being a flat structure makes me feel like everything would also be transparent. But of course, that's not the truth of like anything organized by humans. Like people are going to self-organize and there will be cliques and sub-cliques and what have you. And so, I've run into that kind of stuff sometimes. And I don't know. We were having some hiring discussions within audio lately. It's interesting to, I don't know, start to ask questions like, I'm actually not sure where the information comes from in terms of like, do we need more people or like, who would I talk to? Am I not in the right meetings, And there's a lot of like, go out and find it out for yourself as soon as you care about it. The structures are like kind of implicit and you have to sort of find them as opposed to the way they're codified like really explicitly in AAA, where it's like, oh, clearly there's this one person whose entire job is handling this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You mean it's like tribal knowledge, you mean? And you just kind of have to ask around to find out?
Yeah, I think tribal knowledge and also just a sense of like, I don't know, when it's a flat company and you feel like you're empowered to go and do anything you want, I don't know, you first have to realize what you want to do and then you have to do a lot of searching to figure out who the key kind of stakeholders are in that thing you want to start doing. And
you guys have like a system to find that out, like a directory kind of thing? Like
no, nothing like that.
Because that is something I'm thinking of building out for Nodo. I mean, we do have it loosely, but it's not super codified or anything. It's like, oh, this person's a vision holder of this. And, if you're going to have flatter structure with more distributed roles and stuff like that, I think that makes sense. Apple does this with something called like a DRI system, which is like directly responsible individual or something like that. And they have like a whole like directory of where you find the DRI for things, and they have the whole culture of like, well, who's the DRI? Are you the DRI for that, right? And so you basically are the one held accountable for that system. You may not be the one totally building it and everything, but you're the one responsible for it, right? Which at a traditional organization usually is like the lead. The lead is like DRI of everything under that.
Right.
You know, if it's lead system designer, you're DRI of every system essentially. And it's always unclear too in the end of like, well, you know, oh, the system didn't go so well. So does the lead system designer get, you know, dinged for that? Does the dev team working on it? Does who, you know, where's the accountability happen? And it's always nebulous of like, who's the one accountable for that, which is like, I think a challenge of the traditional architecture, which kind of like what the flatter structure is trying to, I think, or maybe it should be to address, but yeah.
Just pros and cons. I mean, I think that Valve video resonated in just that, like, I mean, a lot of their critiques of the system felt valid and like took me a while to discover, just kind of walking, you know, into a flat structure, not completely knowing how it was going to work versus what I was used to. I think there was a while where this kind of less hierarchical Valve and even Google to an extent model just seemed like the new hotness back in like the early 2010s. And, you know, the handbook leaked. And I just remember feeling like, oh, that's obviously like an ideal way to self-arrange and just the way things should work. And, you know, slowly but surely you kind of run into the bumps. Listening to you, it does seem like, I would say there's more tribal knowledge than I would like, but I don't know, all of that feels like maybe it's left in place intentionally because then people can just sort of do things the way they want. Like, I don't know, not every team is forced to use the same software, for instance, in terms of like, you know, a Jira or a Confluence or a Google Docs or what have you. You know, people are kind of, and so that can be cool, but it can also be like, well, you transfer to a different team and you feel like you need to relearn something.
Learn every time.
Which you would not have to do in somewhere that just forces it, right? Anyways,
yeah,
we're getting a little off topic here.
It's a fun topic. I'd like to talk more about. We have had a show where we talk about operations and stuff, but I think another one of those could be fun, at least for me to talk about. I don't know how interesting it is to everybody else, but it's interesting for me.
Dude, the people want Noto OS. Yeah, they need it.
Yeah. But let's move on to news. Maybe just breeze through some of the stuff going on.
I mean, what seems tastiest to you? We've got the new Supercell announcement, Hogwarts Legacy, which I have not paid a lot of attention to. The Blizzard return to office.
Yeah, it's on my. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the Hogwarts thing, I think I haven't had a chance to play the game yet. It's on my backlog, but I think what's interesting about that is just kind of the whole controversies surrounding it with J.K. Rowling and like a lot of her her drama is attached to the project. You know, people boycotting it and stuff like that. I think what's interesting to take away is just that in the end, people don't give a crap about all this stuff that a lot of people on Twitter think is so important or so, you know, part of the zeitgeist and everything. It just shows you just like, people just want to play fucking Harry Potter, like that, you know? And so I just think that we over-index on like these little controversies and how they could potentially affect the project or whatever. And that one donkey video, I don't know if you saw it, where he like goes through like, he's like, oh shit, we can't talk about Hogwarts. Oh shit, we can't talk about this game. You know, like going, because every game fucking has some controversy. So whatever. Who cares?
There's a whole industry that needs that controversy to exist. It's not to say that controversy is invalid, but like we expect it at this point. There's going to be, like you said, there's a baseline level of controversy. So not to diminish, you know, whatever was going on with J.K. Rowling. I keep my nose out of those comments mostly because I've never been a Harry Potter fan at all. I tried reading one of the books once, and it was like very 8th grade reading level, and I just got bored. Yeah. No offense, like cool storytelling. I just felt like I should have been born, you know, 5 years later, and then I would have loved this. But
yeah, no, totally.
I haven't. So I mean, the gameplay itself The only thing I really remember is watching the announcement video last year and having a sense of like, this seems like a just total love letter to people who are fans of this stuff. And I'm surprised at how many styles of gameplay they were kind of cramming in. And I made me kind of wanted to play it as someone who has no emotional attachment to Harry Potter at all. Like, it does seem like it could be like the gateway property, you know, if you
probably
haven't bought in by now, right?
It just seemed, I think well, talking to people who've played it, the biggest thing that they like about it is just the immersion of the Harry Potter IP, and just, you know, the castle feels like a character, and it has all these like little cool things. It's like, you know, it's just the kit and the immersion of that world, I think. But the story in the game I've heard is just kind of like blah. So again, it's always just about the setting and the kind of IP and stuff like that, rather than, you know, narrative, let's say, or oh my god, it has the best, you know, kills Dark Souls, it's the best combat ever. Like, no one, you know, all those things I think are not so important. Which again shows you how important IPs are in games. But yeah, that's Hogwarts. But yeah, moving on to I tweeted about, or we were talking about this in the Discord, of Blizzard's having everybody return to the office, and that's causing some controversy. It's interesting to see if like more studios will do that, of returning to the office. We had a show at one point talking about work from home versus not and stuff like that. I won't, you know, don't want to get into that, but I think that's just, again, is being dredged up again in the conversation with this development. The other thing we had in the news was, Supercell today talked about their next chapter, and then we memed about Candace, because obviously Candace is running one of the North America teams, so we wish Candace well, and she's super slammed and busy now.
Just in Finland on any given day, you know, you just don't know.
Yeah. They did mention, I think the North American teams are all full remote, but then in Helsinki, they're all, it's in Helsinki, right?
Yes, they're all. I had to just check too. I was getting ready to snip that out and replace it with Sweden. Yeah, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, in post, we could add in post.
Correct.
Yeah, so there's that. I think the big kind of thing in there that I noticed was just they talk about realigning the way in which they greenlight games and think about games is really more designer driven and experience driven, thinking about the IP and like some sort of, you know, long lasting kind of experience, rather than trying to be data driven and just kind of chasing trends. And so I think that is something that, you know, I think a lot of these studios are going to, you know, rethink. Because I think in the, you know, when Supercell really took off, and they've been kind of trending downwards ever since Tencent acquired them. But when they took off, you know, mobile was a totally different space than it is today. It was so easy to kind of make money as a decent game studio on mobile, just because all the familiar players, like the incumbents, like EA or Blizzard, etc., just weren't on mobile. But now it's so saturated, it's hard to create a $1 billion property just on mobile. And so I think the shift for all these studios, especially mobile first ones like Scopely or Supercell, etc., is to diversify out just from mobile. And so now, and obviously if you're going to make a game for PC or for console, or if it's cross-platform, you're talking about a very different audience and a very different way of making a game. And so that's Supercell's next big challenge, is how to do that. That's all the pressure on Candace to to do that. So we'll see what happens.
No, she's got it in the bag, no problem.
Bullish,
bullish on Candace. It's interesting that like acknowledging this pivot away from just chasing the numbers and trends and being completely data driven would happen at a time where it feels like every company is tightening their belt. You know, like it feels like the kind of exploration you would want to do when money was freer, you know. But if you can like actually, if you're committing to making this kind of a turn during a time where you're also having to like tighten your belt, I mean, it must be like a pretty core belief change. I never thought I would like be in games long enough to hear the phrase expand out from mobile, by the way. Like it's just it's kind of always gone the other way.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest some of the biggest games on mobile have been, IPs that were also big on console PC, like COD Mobile or
Right.
Diablo Immortal, or and then Genshin was huge because it was cross-platform from the beginning. So we're gonna see. I think that's kind of what the big hotness is right now. So whether that will continue or not, we'll just have to see, I guess. But so
Yeah.
yeah, that's the Supercell thing. And then, gosh, there's not very much else in the news that we had, but there you go. But yeah,
We can talk about AI. I feel like we had a podcast on AI like 5 months ago,
yeah,
and it was
mhm,
it was still very conceptual at that time because it was like pre-Chat GPT even.
yeah,
In the last, since then we've had Chat GPT, and in the last 2 months alone, I know you have been going hard on 11 Labs and voice synthesis and stuff. And like, anyways, it's advancing very, very quickly. And like the applications for game development are revealing themselves really quickly too. I'm kind of feeling like I probably have another month or two before somebody just casually links an AI that's capable of generating amazing sound design off of a natural language prompt in Slack, and I just freeze. So it would be good to catch up and talk about how, I don't know. I'm curious as to like how you were integrating this into Nodo. We talked about that a little bit last time, but now that I've seen you really voraciously digging into this 11 Labs stuff, like how are you feeling about the trajectory of all of this as someone who runs a studio full of employees that might have their own concerns about AI? Like, where are you at right now?
yeah. No, you're right that I think it's totally taken off since we had that last podcast, and I think it's going to become even bigger soon. Mostly just because there's so much capital flowing into startups and companies that are doing AI. Obviously, even Microsoft has spent a fuck ton of money on OpenAI and adding ChatGPT 3 to like Microsoft's Office suite. And then, everyone is talking about how Google's done, because they're lagging behind with their own AI solution or AI, ChatGPT 3 thing, which is I think called Bard. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this is basically going to be the year of like AI, maybe not the year of like, I don't think the singularity is going to happen or anything like that. But I think
No.
there's just going to be a lot of just like these business to business software or SaaS things that will have AI integrated in them. I think the more I use each individual thing, I feel like it's a lot of it's kind of I think kind of overhyped. For example, I think any game studio, especially if you're a startup, is going to get pressure to add AI elements into your game or like add AI to your pipeline
Oh,
to
it's
kind of
like
make your company more appealing. It's a new Web3
crypto.
based.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in some ways, I agree with that to us. Every startup, every new company should be thinking from first principles of how we can think about new methods and things to move faster in development or make the game better or make a better experience, all those sort of things. There are, I think, some applications of AI that could do that. I think the most typical one really is using Midjourney or like generative or AI art to be used in the development process in some ways. I've seen, I mean, typically, I think the most way it's pretty much used is inspiration to like help mood boards. It's like a better, or not a better, but like another way to fill up a mood board other than just using Google image search or going to an art station or something like that. I think there are a lot of finesse you need to kind of use Midjourney or use some of the generative or AI art in order to get good results. There are some newer startups, like one is called Leonardo AI that I'm in the beta for, where you basically feed it. I mean, you can create, it's essentially, you can just create, you could do this without any of these like front ends, which basically is what Leonardo is. They're not creating any of their own like code or any of their own models or whatever to like they're not making another DALL-E essentially, right? They're just kind of
Okay.
they have a front end which essentially interfaces with the back end, which is like that, like DALL-E or whatever, Midjourney, etc. And then it just gives you the results, and it has like a nicer UI. And so, but it allows you to do for like laymen is you can feed it a bunch of art and then create your own data set, and then for example, you could throw in all of your portfolio art of your studio if it's all kind of stylistically similar, and then say like, oh, project honor style, theoretically. And I've tried doing that, and I don't know if it's just like too in its infancy, or I need to feed it more things, or I'm just stupid. But I think the results are just kind of so, I think you need a lot of data input into it to really get a good result. And so, but I think there's other studios and other companies that are going to be using that. I'm sure there's already some games on Steam that are fully made with using generative AI art and stuff like that. Obviously, there's also this huge controversy of artists rebelling against the entire thing and wanting to sue and want regulations and stuff. So that's going to be a big thing this year, next year, going forward. So that's like the AI art. And then on the other side, you mentioned 11 Labs. 11 Labs, again, is just another front end for the back end, which is this model called, I think, Tortoise AI, which essentially you just feed it like 3 5-minute clips of someone's voice, and then it's like text to speech, which is really eerily similar
fucking
to the
uncanny,
input.
dude. Like,
yeah,
I could not believe the quality of the Adam Curtis one. Like, I feel almost guilty for having assisted in it. Like, I'm trapping someone's soul in it. Like, someone can go and feel free to grab just 30 seconds of me ranting about some bullshit from a previous episode and make a bot. I don't want to confront it myself, but we're very, very close to just typing out an entire Theorycraft episode.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the next couple of years, it will talk better than you can, basically, because, you're always going to have ums and ahs and like whatever. We'll just clean that up. It'll just like, oh, fuck it. I'm not even going to talk. I'll just have this AI talk for me. And can't even tell the difference, So, yeah, I mean, I think actually the voice one is the coolest. But I think it's the easiest one to just kind of regulate and block, because obviously if you have Henry Cavill's voice or something, he'd easily be like, hey, that's like totally me, I mean,
yeah, I did like your suite of celebrity project honor promos.
Yeah, so I trained one to be like Henry Cavill. I did one that was like the starting zone WoW announcer or narrator. I forget his name, the actor, but it's the guy who, like, when you start a night elf, he talks about the night elf. Like,
you are one of Sylvanas' undead. Yeah, one of that guy.
Yeah. And then what else did I do? Adam Curtis I did, and a couple others that were funny. I mean, one challenge with it, and you helped me do this, is if there's a lot of background noise, it really fucks up the data set. So you really have to clean that out. Yeah. I mean, 4chan had a lot of fun making all these like inappropriate clips of famous people saying crazy things. And 11 Labs, I think, kind of basically turned the faucet off for a bit to put some filters in there. And I was seeing today also Microsoft's Bing, their AI, people are manipulating that, and it has like its own kind of personality. It's really interesting. I kind of predict that there's going to be a lot of different AI front ends that use basically the same technology, but they're all going to have a different kind of filter that gives them a different kind of vibe. Like there's going to be the professional one. There's going to be the one that has zero filter. There's going to be one who is like maybe a conservative bent or whatever. Like there's going to be all these different AIs that have different personalities tailored for everyone's unique ideologies. But yeah. Anyways, that was a long monologue on where I think it's going.
That sounds apocalyptic. I mean, funneling people into like ever more realistic echo chambers that just respond to them no matter what their bias is doesn't really sound like a solution to the moment we're in, but that could be what happens for sure. Everybody's talking about how the sky is falling for creatives' careers regarding art, regarding voice. There was a Vice article that interviewed a friend of mine about that when 11 Labs was really popping off 2 weeks ago or so.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Who? Somebody I know, or
what's up? Oh, her name is
somebody.
Her name is Frida Wolf.
Oh yeah, I have heard of her.
Yeah. She does a lot of stuff
before. Yeah.
Yeah. And she has opinions, and I feel like the take from her that resounded the most in that article for me is that the established voice actors who are already in the game are being approached by companies such as 11 Labs. I don't know if she mentioned them explicitly or what her correspondence was, but they are kind of being approached and pitched on this idea of like these long-term revenue sharing models and, you know, the ability to sort of virtually act in more games than they would have been able to otherwise, licensing their likeness and such like that. And her take is like, you know, just this is not the sort of arrangement that the great majority of voice actors are actually asking for. Like, go ask musicians how beneficial Spotify payouts have been to their career in terms of like if they just basically had more gigs or more direct sales or, you know, any of the like previous ways of monetizing their stuff. Like, I don't think it's too cynical to say that like any of the payment arrangements being made are probably like, you know, for the benefit of 11 Labs and for the benefit of production overall. This is not like a Bandcamp Friday voice actor first approach, you know? It's being done because like it can be done is my opinion on it.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting.
People who generate it aren't really asking for it, you know? It's just happening because it can. And I mean, that's what we do, you know? We'll find out the consequences later. They seem predictable.
I think that is a really interesting business model, though. You can imagine, God, what is the union that does the voice actor union? It's a SAG.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So imagine there's like a new voice actor solution, like a different union or something, and it's basically something like 11 Labs, and they do like what you're talking about, where they license these different voice actors, and you basically get paid per hour that your voice is used by the, you know, and then obviously they charge people for that, and you get a cut of that. But then what they could also do is like if you actually want that voice actor, they're part of this union too. If you want them to do something bespoke that's not AI generated, you know, because I do think it's going to have flaws. Like there's going to be some stuff that you want to like actually have a real person, at least in the interim, until it gets like really good. And so maybe that could be an interesting model. It's like, yeah, you can have the AI version, but then you also can license them as well, and they're all under the same umbrella. I think that's a cool business idea.
Yeah.
Damn. Let's do it.
I think there are more equitable business models within that, but I don't know. You just have to look at the last time the tools for somebody to distribute themselves, you know, more widely than they could have before have come online, and there are always new stars that emerge to you know, take advantage and rise up in these platforms. But I do feel like if you're already on top and you're like Troy Baker and everybody wants Troy Baker, you know, the people who are already in the top 0.1% of voice actors in demand become basically like that, you know, making a living to the degree that those people do becomes a thing that is like aspirational if you hit the 0.001%. I think it just squeezes further up, and folks that have not really gotten in yet are now having to basically compete. I mean, it's like globalization for voices, basically. And I think it will make it more difficult to kind of break in. And I don't know, I guess the system self-corrects when, you know, everybody suddenly is tired of fucking hearing Troy Baker because they've been slapping him on every single advertisement, you know? And so then it's somebody else's turn at the wheel. So maybe there's a balance that gets found in there, but it is going to be really disruptive for a while there. And so,
yeah.
What I want to say is that,
go ahead. No, well, go ahead.
We both work inside game developers. We can see this shit happening. We can see the conversations. We can see the class action, you know, against Stable Diffusion from DeviantArt, et cetera, and or these artists. But like I still haven't seen anybody internally talk about how we're bringing this in and it's going to be replacing jobs. I don't think I've seen any. I don't know that I've seen any like large companies issue statements on that either. And so, as a creative person,
yeah.
Well, as a creative person myself,
like the black Twitter image with the white text talking about AI. Yeah, not yet, but I think there was that with ArtStation. ArtStation got hit pretty hard, and everybody was protesting on there, and people deleted their accounts. So it happened there, but it hasn't happened at a big studio yet because I don't think any of them. We're not there yet where you just like fire half your artists and just use Midjourney. Like that's just not going to happen yet. So I don't think,
right. We're not there yet. I mean, even I can see with the tools, we're still not there yet, but are we going there? Like in your estimation?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be something, you know, there's going to be a thing where if your company uses AI art, people at your studio are going to want to peace out, you know, because it's against their values. I think that's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, UBI needs to get here like yesterday. It's just kind of the vibe I get every time I read some of this stuff. Like, it really
One of the
is
cooler
good.
uses of AI that I've seen isn't voice or images, but I guess it's kind of similar to ChatGPT 3, where basically, gosh, what game is it? I think it's what is that game called? It's Mountain Blade. So there's like Mountain Blade. There's an add-on community for this, and they created like I forget if someone posted this in our Discord or if I found it my own. Yeah, Mountain Blade, they have like a bunch of different NPCs in the world. Like this guy's going crazy adding AI into this game, and everyone's loving it. So it's like a really like grassroots thing happening that no one knows about. It's not like investors propping up some company or anything like that. And it's actually adding, an experience to the game, and that's the whole goal. Is like how can it add like something interesting? Basically, it's just you talk to a vendor, and the designers train this vendor or this NPC on who they are and what they know and things like that. But you can have a conversation with them and be like, did you see this bandit come by here? And they're like, oh yeah, we saw him yesterday. What did he look like? And it's basically you can keep having a conversation with these NPCs in the world, which is kind of cool. It depends on the game, of course, but that I think stuff like that I think is an opportunity for games to do world building and add depth to the world. Because as somebody who had to build those fucking dialogues for NPCs of like ask a question, get a response, ask a follow up, it's just that whole tree. It's kind of a pain, and so that could be cool. Anyways, that's kind of like one of the cool things I've seen in a game.
Yeah, I mean, cheap or additional depth to games that have really just had breadth before is pretty appealing. I mean, I can see it being huge for mod projects that are never going to have the scope to really bring in all the voice actors they might want to, and like it's definitely going to push up the baseline level of like the quality of a lot of stuff. I don't know. Just as someone who makes my living doing it, I don't feel it's quite as rosy as like, boy, I can't wait to kick back and like enjoy games where I can talk to a single NPC for 3 hours, because it's just going to have like massive ripple effects for like the way that I live. And I think that like there are just a lot of interesting questions that probably are answered by money at the heart of like why a lot of this stuff is getting developed. Certainly it's going to be a good time for gamers. That is until we inevitably start to complain that like being able to talk to what is clearly an AI for 3 hours about, where they learned blacksmithing isn't gameplay. And we want something different again, But in the interim, I think that will be really cool and novel.
When you just said that, I remember that one scene in one of the Adam Curtis documentaries where he talks about this. This was like in the 80s where somebody built an AI, a rudimentary one, and people got addicted talking to it. And the reason why they liked talking to it so much was it didn't judge them, right? It wasn't like their friend being like, oh my God, you have that problem. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it's really essentially the entire script plot to her in some way, right? So her is going to happen 100%.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's a like real core drive in human existence. And like not everybody gets there because things are unequal. So if I could see myself getting sucked into that shit 1000%, man.
So this guy, I was watching this YouTube channel, and he's like really a new YouTuber, had like hardly, I don't know how I got into his channel, but because he has like no followers, but he keeps posting videos of him working on this AI that basically uses Alexa and ChatGPT and the voice AI all together. And he created like a voice that's kind of similar to like the gosh, who was the actress? Scarlett Johansson's voice. And each video is like an improvement on it. It's pretty freaky and like how close, like how realistic it is in terms of responses and like the personality and stuff. But the interesting thing is the YouTuber's like whole vibe is like he's almost like kind of like has a crush on this AI, and he just I don't know, like the kind of when you look at his face when he's talking about it or using it, he's like he like is really into it. I don't know, I could totally see that popping off.
Absolutely, man. It's nice to know that'll be an option there. This is kind of like the new oh, I'll just be playing at a LAN party in a retirement center with all my friends, future fantasy. Now that like retirement is a dream, it's like, well, at least I'll have like the fucking custom AI chatbot companion of my dreams to keep everything on rails. Okay. We should get some people up here for questions folks have been asking in chat. So anytime you want to raise your hand and come up, by the way, and talk about AI.
Yeah, if anyone wants to talk about AI or anything else, totally fine.
Yeah, just pop in.
We could take a look at, so yeah, those are our thoughts on AI. I mean, I have a lot more, but it's kind
of, yeah, this is probably the first of many, many more conversations. It's
we'll do a round 3. Yeah, we'll do a lot more this year.
Just wait until Blizzard makes a statement on AI. Holy shit, we'll be farming it for like a month, which is, I guess, one episode.
I have heard internally they are using AI a little bit in development for like rigging and stuff like that, which a lot of other companies are doing. So, I do think, there's going to be a lot of other applications for it for sure. Yeah, maybe we could like read through other Q&A stuff that was on the channel.
Have you thought at all if you were like coming up and trying to get into game development now with the advent of all of this AI, like would you take a different tack? Like how it feels like things are changing so rapidly that it's tough to know where to even train yourself. Like, have you thought about this very much? Do you feel in any way threatened or concerned by AI? Like, I feel like I'm over here in this camp. I respect that it's going to happen, but like, you're stoic about most things, but like, I'm just trying to dig. Like, do we see eye to eye on any of that?
Well, it was interesting. I had like a debate with an artist about AI. And his view, he was telling me like it needs to be regulated. It's stealing other people's work and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I'm a designer. Anybody can steal any design of anything. You can't really sue somebody for design. There's like maybe like 1 or 2 examples. There was that Lord of the Rings game where they had that system that they patented and they sued somebody or something. But there's just not like anybody can copy any kind of design from any other game, So it's like, well, designers have always been copied all the time. I don't think it necessarily means that someone can easily make WoW or easily make some other game and just copy it. It's a lot more complicated than that, right? And so I don't know. I feel like anybody like really worried about like they're losing their job or whatever. And this is somebody who just today I was using Midjourney to put some placeholder art in our game just to throw something in there. I think I was sending it to a friend and I was like, I don't even like how this looks, and he's like, yeah, it just feels soulless. And I think that's a good way to put it. It just has this look, there's like an AI art look, and I don't know. So I'm not super worried. Not yet. Long term, yeah, we're all gonna have to adapt.
I'm still in the period where it feels like a tool that hasn't supplanted me yet. It doesn't have its own intentions. I mean, I used ChatGPT to solve 1 or 2 coding problems for me today and felt like a god. So,
that's good.
It's definitely the honeymoon phase, but we'll see where she goes. Okay, Harry might have just dropped. Oh no, Harry's up here. You brought Harry up here.
Yeah, what's up, man? Nothing much. It's been good. This is a really interesting topic to me, but I hadn't even until Chris mentioned the implication using AI for something like dialogue branches and things like that. The first thing I thought of from my perspective in what I do is that also in the middle of playing a game of League, by the way, so sorry if I'm a little disjointed all over the place.
Just don't tilt on us, man.
Oh yeah, no worries. But what's it called? It's like when what I have to do a lot of the time is actually add what artists are or what writers forgot to add in editing. Like when I'm editing dialogue branches, a lot of time have to add like responses that we'd rather be there, or like if you reject a quest and you have to come back, like we need to go through and manually specify that. But with AI, I actually imagine that you could actually generate it in a way to account for certain things like that the writer might forget to account for. So even if it's like the writer writes up a dialogue doc and then they structure it a certain way and then they can run it through maybe a bot to add the conditions that, or the cases that they forgot to add, or even if the bot generates it first and then the writer goes in afterwards and like kind of steals the format, that would be actually something that'd probably be pretty helpful for me. It would make me obsolete, theoretically, but it would be helpful, no doubt, overall to the process.
Yeah, I like the idea of, the more I listen to you talk about it, and what keeps me calm is dude,
Sorry.
are you getting out farmed or what's going on?
I Vexar'd someone and I didn't think about it. I just pressed it and I flew into like 4 of them, and it was a bad idea.
Bad initiate, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like how I live, but
Andy has been slain.
Yeah, I think that's, I really like, I don't know, using AI as, Microsoft has this term for what they're planning on bolting into GitHub called like a co-pilot. I like the idea of it co-piloting. I think that's why ChatGPT still feels so good right now, is you feel like it's assisting you in the thing that you want to do and just making you better. And I like the idea of AI entering my workflow. If it's just going to like mean that I can elevate my craft and we can like give a better experience to players and just make cooler shit or make more of it. I think the elevate part feels good. It's the replace part that feels concerning. No one wants to live in a world where it's like, wow, we can just not hire anybody and just kind of put out a bunch of like very average dreck using something like this. And I don't know, my hairs go up a little bit just hearing your story, Chris, about just chucking something in with Mid-Journey kind of temp. But like, I'm not an artist in your team. I don't know how that would feel. But like, if somebody just really started throwing in a ton of temp audio that was already above the level of temp because an AI had built it, I would at least want to be kind of consulted. I feel like everybody in their discipline, as long as like they kind of sign off, I think, to the degree which AI is being utilized, I don't think there's a problem. Then it's consensual, I think that a lot of people's fears are with the concept of the people who sign the checks making all of the calls on where AI is going to be deployed, kind of taking agency and creativity and like purpose away from people to say nothing about them getting paid. And like, that's where it gets a bit murky.
Yeah, and I don't think we plan on actually. We're not going to like ship with this or anything like that. It's just purely for prototype. It's like using store assets, basically.
Yeah, it's got temp underscore temp. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got to acquire more skills to avoid being replaced. That's how I think about it.
I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing is, it took me like, I don't know, at least a half an hour to like do all these prompts and find ones I liked and whatever. So you're gonna also need somebody to do that. Like, it's funny because right now there's a position called prompt engineer or something like that, which I think is a real thing. I think something on Fiverr you could probably hire somebody to do.
Night Stalker, what's going on?
I mean, maybe it's been kind of discussed already, but the comparison between AAA companies with large and long-lived IPs that have lots of context for AI to generate something versus a indie company which has to start from basically nothing, planting their own seed. So it's basically, I would say, unavoidable for certain aspects of game making that at least IPs like Warcraft, or what's even older, let's say Star Wars, because that's come from movies, which are just generated. And you could also make the joke, and it's been made for the last 5 years that Marvel movies and Star Wars movies are so formulaic, you could write the scripts with an AI. So the question is that unavoidable when you have large IPs and indie companies just won't ever stumble into this?
Right. So you're kind of just saying that the incumbents, the large AAA companies, kind of have an advantage because they have so much art and IP in their catalog, so it's so easy to create derivative stuff of it.
Yeah. Also, I would say it's the discussion that large IPs just cannot fail. You cannot take any risks, so you just want to generate the most generic stuff because people want just more of the same, which cannot fail in terms of investment. So you're basically deadlocked into being replaced.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do think, of course, it's going to be a lot more challenging for the newer companies to create a catalog or a portfolio of art to seed from to compete with the incumbents. So yeah, in some ways, I think maybe the incumbents have an advantage, but I do think they're a lot slower. And I don't know if they're going to really build out these pipelines and this kind of infrastructure very soon. I think it'd probably take them a lot longer than, say, some of the newer companies. So that's kind of the difference, I think. Is like, yeah, the bigger companies have more work to reference from, but the smaller ones have a lot more of the hustle and the kind of forward thinking to build out that infrastructure from the beginning. So I still would bet on the startups and stuff like that, or the newer companies to be the trailblazers. But we'll see.
That is a really interesting tension. Good point.
Yeah. Was that right, Night Stalker, of what you were talking about? Is that kind of like the same vibe of what you were thinking, or was something else? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, you talked about the prompters are going to be relevant once this happens. I would even say those can be replaced by algorithms, which are just based on public surveys that are more psychology based. So you basically just look at how consumers or customers react to your product, and an algorithm will determine what happens next in terms of development. That could be the absolute nightmare.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So basically, I mean, AI will basically, for example, a TikTok algorithm already probably knows you pretty well. It knows things you like, how long you take to look at a certain video. It knows all this, all that sort of shit. And so it could just keep, AI generating crap for entertaining things for you to watch. It can make you keep scrolling, and it's all AI generated. That's totally, I could see that.
Going to be a big one this year. I can't wait and going forward,
I think what is, sorry, I didn't even realize I was still in here. I feel like what's important is keeping an attitude of keeping in front of this stuff. Because yes, I feel like regardless of whether or not we're there yet, there's no argument that it will replace something and make some skills and things obsolete in some places. But ultimately, those places are going to be different. Like Chris said, depending on where you are, some places might not use any AI for any reason whatsoever. And so therefore, no one is really at risk in that workplace. But even if as it gets made, I feel like it's important to keep I try to avoid the victim, as much as I can in terms of this thing stealing what I'm doing or something. If a robot can do what I do, then I just got to do something else and make myself more valuable in some other way.
Yeah. I think that's a healthy way to think about it, is how to adapt, how to use it as a tool and that sort of thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Cool.
Wrap it up. 7:01.
Yeah, totally. That sounds
all right.
good.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully we'll be back soon with Kevin. I feel like Candace is going to be taking a breather for a little while, but it was nice to be back here, and thanks for hanging out on stage.
She has to write the next chapter of Supercell.
She has to write the next chapter. No pressure. Yeah.
And then, the other thing too is, I guess there's a new WoW Diary expansion.
He's reprinting it, and then it sounded like there were going to be a bunch of other anecdotes and such on there.
That's cool.
Yeah,
we gotta we should get him back on to talk about it. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see if he's got anything more to spill on Titan. That was a really good time last time.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was an awesome episode.
It's a spicy episode. Yeah. All right, Chris, why don't you take us out?
All right. Later, gamers.
Ooh, sign up for the play test if you haven't yet.
Oh, yeah. Sign up for a play test to notorious.gg. There you go.
Nice. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right.